nitpick, and we say he doesn't do
our credit. You're nitpicking. I'm sitting next to you saying,
take the win, Paris. Take the win.
You know,
you missed it.
For the America,
you're totally dismissive of the president's actions and everything that he does.
For the America First president, there was something that stood out to me this week that he said at the end of this week in the press conference with German Chancellor Angela Merkel that was not just about America First, Kevin Madden. He said, talking about the Crimea Peninsula and hoping for peace, this is certainly something that I hope I can do for the world. This is beyond the United States. And that was sort of the opposite of the Trumpism we often see.
Yeah, and I think he's, and I think, Paris, I think everybody is being intellectually honest and giving the credit. I think where they're skeptical is not of the president, it's of the historical trends that we've seen with North Korea. But you're right. I think the president is, sort of reaping the fruits of his labor when it comes to, pursuing this policy against a lot of criticism, and is, very confident in some of the working relationships that he's had. We saw him talk very effusively and praise President Moon. He obviously has a very good relationship there. He's built a stronger relationship with President Merkel, or Chancellor Merkel, even though that has started off.
There was nowhere to go but up.
Right, exactly. and I think he's seen that with that comes some progress, and even folks like, Joan Walsh, who are critics, offering some level of credit,
Even so Joan Walsh, the new standard.
I'm sure the president is very aware of Joan's comments.
Yes. We got a lot more to talk about. I will also say the fact that Kim Jong-un now seems to have a lot of missiles that can shoot very far and now has many new nuclear weapons, also factoring into the progress in this negotiation. But again,
progress is progress.
Progress is progress. Stand by, everyone. The president is making more news. He just made a big promise about the midterm elections and talking about what would happen if he is impeached.
Happened during the second week on the job for me covering the White House. There was a background briefing with Chief of Staff Kelly, and about 5 minutes the door swings open, and lo and behold, it's President Trump.
Breaking news. President Trump speaking to reporters moments ago in a surprise question and answer session.
He was just freewheeling.
Fortunately, we were already recording on our phone, so we were able to capture everything.
Do you want citizenship for Dreamers?
We're going to morph into it. Or are you going to talk to Mueller? I'm looking forward to it, actually.
That is when I thought to myself, this president is unpredictable. You never know what you're going to get. Just a background briefing with his chief of staff could create worldwide headlines by the president barging in.
White House correspondent Pamela Brown talking about a memorable moment on the job.
2 weeks into this new stint
2
for
weeks
her,
in, the President of the United States, his own communications director, delivering those communications. We are in special live coverage of quite a night. The President speaking in Michigan and, of course, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Let's go to the red carpet. CNN Justice reporter Laura Jarrett is there. CNN White House reporter Kate Bennett is there. I am excited about this because comedian Michelle Wolf will be on in a little bit. I've been watching her stuff for the last few weeks.
Great.
She's freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for that. What can we expect over the next couple hours?
Well, one thing we've seen, John, here is several members of the cabinet, of the administration, coming out in full force. Everyone from Kellyanne Conway to White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, as well as a slew of former officials, including former Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, as well as Gary Cohn. And it's interesting. We've asked them, how come they came this time around, this second year, when last year many of them did not show up? And they said they were actually encouraged to come by President Trump, even though he is obviously not in attendance tonight. He's at that rally in Michigan, but they all seem very supportive of the evening.
They did. And the other thing that was odd in this sort of fever dream that is the White House Correspondents' Dinner arrivals is Michael Avenatti was here, Stormy Daniels' attorney, and I asked him, I said, do you think you're going to be in the routine tonight? Do you think you're going to be joked about by Michelle Wolf? And he said, it's possible. I mean, anything is possible when you've got Avenatti standing next to Kellyanne Conway, standing next to the press secretary. He also said that there's a natural tension. I mean, everyone likes to sort of put aside politics this evening and just sort of nerd prom it up, but Avenatti did say there is this undeniable sort of tension in the air. It's a partisan feeling. However, as you said, the president himself apparently encouraged several members of his staff to come tonight, and they turned out. You know, the first one on the carpet, and this was Omarosa, and she was out here fluffing her dress, doing her red carpet thing. And I think, again, like Michelle Wolf should have some fun with the attendees. They will know that they're certainly up for fodder. They're up to be made fun of. It almost becomes a roast in a way tonight.
Yeah. But one of the things you hear a lot is, you know, it's really an evening about reporters and it's about journalism. In fact, the money that is raised at the dinner tonight goes to journalism scholarship. So at the end of the day, it's really a celebration of the First Amendment.
So true.
I'm glad you brought it back to that, because that is what it's all about tonight. Guys, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll check back with you in a moment. Someone who is talking politics a lot tonight in another Washington far, far away is the president. President Trump holding this big rally in Washington Township, Michigan, and he just talked about the midterm elections. Listen to this.
To keep the House. Because if you listen to Maxine Waters, she goes around saying, we will impeach him. We will impeach him. Then people said, but he hasn't done anything wrong. Oh, that doesn't matter. We will impeach the president. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of happy people if that happens. I think it's going to be a little bit tough. But she goes around, and some others, we will impeach him. Doesn't matter if you do anything right or wrong. They want to do that. We got to win the House. And you know what? We're going to win anyway. But we're going to win the House.
Interesting to hear.
We got to win, but we're going to win anyway.
We got to win, but we're going to win. And if we don't win, I'm going to be impeached. 3 separate messages there, all being delivered to an audience. Very interesting to see. Kevin Madden, it is a strategy we are seeing now from Republicans to raise the stakes and say, look, if the Democrats do take back the House, the president could very well be impeached. Is that salient? Does that resonate with voters in the districts that matter?
Well, let's define districts that matter.
Right.
For base voters in districts that matter, it does matter. But the problem is that the reasons that they're districts that matter is there's not enough base voters to win those districts. So it's whether or not it's an animating issue for the swing voters that are going to make or break those issues.
And is it?
And it's not. It's not.
And
because what it does is, just real quickly, is it makes the midterms a referendum on Donald Trump, which is what you don't want.
It's in fact
a lot
the
of these
last thing you
candidates,
want,
right? A lot of these candidates, what they want to do in order to win in these districts is get out of the national jet stream, localize and personalize that race.
And Joan, you've even seen some very prominent Democrats warning against running
Nancy
on
Pelosi
impeaching the president.
Has warned against running. Has said
Emanuel.
Right, I mean, people are warning against it. People do know it's dangerous. People do know it's divisive. Of course, it's on the table if it's proven that he's done something wrong. If Robert Mueller comes back with a long list of findings that are disturbing, no one should take it off the table entirely. No one can take it off the table. But no Democrats are going, well, my friend Maxine Waters is, but most Democrats are not doing that wisely, I think. So he's making this up to please his crowd.
Well, they're not campaigning on it. Most Democrats are not campaigning on it. You know, Catherine, is it unfair to suggest right now impeachment just would never happen? There's a 0% chance impeachment will happen with a Republican House. If a Democratic House, that's not a zero number anymore.
Right. Certainly that is a subtext here, but Joan is right that if you look at what is happening in the races around the country that we've seen so far, the special elections, this has not been a core issue. It's been about health care. It's been about other economic issues. On both sides, mind you, both Republicans and Democrats have been talking about that. I mean, you have Republicans who are talking about how much they love Trump, of course, but they're not saying you got to elect me because otherwise the president will get impeached. Again, this is the subtext of all of this, but it's not really the rallying cry.
Right, and once you get into that space, you've, as Kevin correctly pointed out, in the 25 to 45 districts that are swing districts or contested districts right now, normally it would be about 25, but because the landscape looks so bad for Republicans, it's about 45 seats that are really in play. Once you're playing a base-only game in those districts, you're at a disadvantage if you're a Republican right now, because base won't get you there. Base is going to get you to 40, 42, 44% in a lot of these places. And what we've seen in the 40-plus races in 17 and 18 is that Democrats will crawl over broken glass to vote against people who are supporting Donald Trump. And they're more active and energized right now than Republicans are. And if you end up with that being the qualification, it's saying to Democrats, yes, this is going to keep us motivated, keep us moving forward. And it's going to say to Republicans, we're only speaking to the tribe. We're not trying to get outside of our base. We're not trying to get outside of the core.
We want to go back to the red carpet of the White House Correspondents' Dinner right now. Jonathan Martin from the New York Times, CNN analyst, is there, and someone who just wrote a story basically on this very subject, the issue of impeachment, how it's being used by Republicans, heading into the 2018 elections. Jonathan.
Yeah, it's extraordinary that you're seeing the president invoke the prospect of his own impeachment, John, at a rally here. But this is kind of where we're at with this president. He and a lot of folks around him believe that this is one of the best ways to rally the conservative base in a year where it's the left that's got more energy and enthusiasm. That if you raise the prospect, John, of his impeachment, that could be what gets out the sort of Trump loyalists, the Trump devotees, who may not otherwise support more conventional GOP candidates, that the risk of him being impeached could be the kind of motivating tool that his base needs to get fired up this fall.
So, Jonathan, from the folks you've spoken with, I mean, is that a winning strategy for this president? Is this the beginning of many, many more moments where the president talks about his own potential impeachment?
Well, oh, absolutely. In fact, he has used that line about Maxine Waters, by my count, I think 4 times now in the last 6 weeks. So this is not a new thing for him, and you're seeing it creep up in some campaigns. Ted Cruz, for example, mentioned the possibility of impeachment at his campaign launch a few weeks ago. So yeah, I think this is going to be mentioned more and more as we get closer to the summer and the fall, because the Republicans need something to get their folks fired up. Look, Democrats have an easy turnout lever. It's called Donald John Trump. That gets their base fired up. Republicans need something equivalent. And this is, by the way, the problem that Democrats and Obama had in the last 8 years, was how do you get people fired up when the president himself is not on the ballot? So that's what the GOP is now trying to figure out, is how do we get our folks out? And the tax bill clearly does not have the punch, as of right now at least, that a lot of folks from the party thought it would. So what's the alternative? Trying to scare folks about the possibility of, an impeachment trial is one potential way.
Jonathan Martin at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Jonathan, but just before we let you go, this is a black tie event. Let me ask you, who are you wearing tonight?
Right. It's a really great designer, Brooks Brothers. They're hot. They're big in Milan, all over the runways these days. And John, when you think me and my reporting, I know, red carpet is the first thing that comes to mind typically.
It is typically. It's okay. John is wearing checkers and stripes.
I am wearing checkers and stripes.
As Phil Mudd pointed out.
And Jonathan Martin.
All right. Thanks, John.
1978 Monday Night Football called and wants his jacket back. All right. Have a great night.
Frank Gifford was a great running back. See ya.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan Martin. We're awaiting the White House Correspondents' Dinner to officially begin. It feels like it began a long time ago, but that was just all the red carpet and all that and the watered-down drinks, as Phil Mudd said. The dinner is about to begin, and we have a lot of other breaking news to talk about as well. The president holding this rally in Washington Township, Michigan, weighing in on that Russian lawyer at the center of that infamous Trump Tower meeting, now says she's an informant. A lot ahead.
The all-new season of Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, starts tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
Welcome back. Newly surfaced emails have emerged about that Russian lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya, who was at the center of the Trump Tower meeting back in 2016. You'll remember that Trump campaign officials, including the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., were in that meeting, and they met with her. You see her there, Natalia Veselnitskaya, on the premise that she had dirt on his father's opponent, Hillary Clinton. Now, initially, she said, look, I'm a private attorney, nothing to do with the Kremlin, with the Russian government. Now the New York Times reports that she actually was acting as an informant with very close ties to the Kremlin.
She says she was a Russian government informant. Now the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, has revealed some different details about that meeting and what he calls a mystery phone call.
Don Jr., prior to the meeting, when this is being discussed by email, because it's of this sensitive nature and they don't want to do it by email, arranges to call Amin Agalarov. This is the son of this oligarch close to Putin. And we have these 2 calls to Amin. And the significant thing is they're separated by a third call to a blocked number. Now, we sought to find out, is that blocked number Donald Trump's blocked number because we found out during the investigation that Donald Trump used a blocked number during the campaign. We asked to subpoena the phone records so we could match up. Did Donald Trump receive a call at the same time Donald Jr. was making that call, to find out, did the president's son seek the president's permission, the go-ahead to go forward with this meeting? The Republicans refused. They didn't want to know. They wouldn't ask the phone company for those records. That tells you a lot about the fundamental unseriousness, really the head in sand approach the GOP took.
Okay, that was Adam Schiff. Now there is a new twist. The president, he's weighing in just moments ago.
Have you heard about the lawyer? For a year, a woman lawyer, she was like, oh, I know nothing, no. Now all of a sudden she supposedly is involved with government. You know why? If she did that, because Putin and the group said, you know, this Trump is killing us. Why don't you say that you're involved with government so that we can go and make their life in the United States even more chaotic? Look at what's happened. Look at how these politicians have fallen for this junk. Russian collusion. Give me a break.
All right, so this Russian lawyer, Natalia Veselnitskaya, we should all go around the table and say that at least once.
I love how you totally showed me up on that.
Natalia Veselnitskaya. It'll be a drinking game once the Correspondents' Dinner is over. Says she's a Russian informant. One of the things that I find most interesting is this news comes out on the very day the House Intelligence Committee puts out its report, its conclusive report, the Republicans in that committee saying there is no collusion. It's as if irony has a very deft scheduler. Lauren, you know, what do you make of this development? The House Intelligence Committee, both sides, Republicans and Democrats, covering themselves in glory?
Yeah, it's huge that this came out in this way. And the idea that, you know, the president's son and his son-in-law obviously is campaign chairman in a meeting with a Russian informant is absolutely huge. And of course, you can always tell with this president what really, truly bothers him, because it's always the thing that he always brings up, sticks on, and keeps talking about again and again and again. And so we'll see how this progresses, but obviously a huge development. It took the news right out of the fact that that report to come out.
Because he thinks it undermines his win, Phil Mudd, because it all comes back. It all comes back to that. Here is what she, Natalia Veselnitskaya, said to NBC. That time I said it. She said, quote, I'm a lawyer. I'm an informant. Since 2013, I have been actively communicating with the office of the Russian Prosecutor General, very high up in the Kremlin. What is your theory on why now? Because when she was asked that exact question 6 months ago, her answer, do you have anything to do with Putin, anything to do with the Kremlin? Do you talk to them? Her answer was, niet. Literally, that's all she said.
Now you're showing off your Russian.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's relevant to the investigation.
But why change her story now?
I think there is. I think the president's onto something. If I'm the Russians, I'm sitting there saying, this guy's been friendly to us. The Secretary of State hasn't been. The UN, Nikki Haley hasn't been. But the president's been pretty courteous to us for whatever it is, 15, 16 months. Past few weeks, he's been rougher. You could easily draw a conclusion that says, why did they decide now to embarrass Don Jr. more? One quick comment. Cry me a river. I don't care what her background is. If you are a federal official or a campaign official involved in a campaign and you're meeting a foreign adversary with the idea that you're going to get dirt, I don't care if she's an informant or if she's your mother-in-law, you don't meet her. I don't care about the details. Do not talk to about a Russian who's offering dirt on the campaign. Done deal. I don't care about what he's
You know, it is interesting you bring that up, Rick Wilson, because so often over the last year and a half, the agreed upon, we forget what the agreed upon facts are and how stunning in some ways the agreed upon facts are in this case. Whether or not she was an official Russian informant to a high-level Kremlin official, which she now says she was, we know that Donald Trump Jr. held a meeting because he was offered dirt on Hillary Clinton that he was told was from the Russian government because he was told the Russian government wanted to help Donald Trump. And we know that because of the emails that Donald Trump Jr. released.
Correct. And it's important, I think, to understand one thing. And Phil's exactly right. This tension's been ratcheting up a little bit because the oligarch class surrounding Putin has been put under some pressure now by these sanctions, okay? That Donald Trump had to be dragged kicking and screaming into deploying against the Russians after the overt nature of their interference in our election and a whole variety of other bad acts. But it's important to remember that the Russian oligarch class, Russian intelligence services, Russian organized crime, they're all of a piece. They're all seeking the maximum amount of leverage that they can play. And this was the kind of thing, this kind of dangle where they would go in and say, you know, we'll get you into the pool just a little bit. You'll put your toe in, then your knee, and then you're underwater, and you're beholden to the Russians. This is a classic part of their recruitment sort of methodology. This isn't, this from the outside, this doesn't look like, to me, it doesn't look like just a coincidental meeting about adoption. It looks like the Russians making a play, which they did, and we know what they were offering wasn't to talk about adoption or anything else. They wanted to talk about a trade-off for dirt on Hillary for Magnitsky relief. This was a simple quid pro quo. It's dirty as hell. There's no sane person in the world. Even Steve Bannon thought this was a bad idea. Even Steve Bannon thought it's a bad idea. That's like a gold standard of detecting bad ideas. On the pyramid of bad ideas, Steve Bannon stands at the top, buck naked, screaming, "Pay attention! This is a bad idea."
Paris, this brings this meeting, which I think even many of the attendees would admit now was a bad idea to have, right back to the fore with this information that she was not a private attorney. She was acting on the behest in some way or another of the Kremlin.
Look, I think what you see is happening is it's chess. They see what President Trump is doing, the administration is doing, and they say, okay, we got one on you, we'll do something here, we'll say this. It seems that, you know, this investigation has become overtly politicized, in my opinion, with the Republican documents and the Democrat documents, and we release ours now, we release this, and then we'll put this out. It's all political. I think at the end of the day that if this investigation is about Russia collusion in the 2016 campaign, be it with the candidate Trump's campaign or with the Clinton campaign, let's let the Mueller investigation run its course. Let it come to a conclusion and do it quickly, because what the Russians, we know what they wanted to do was sow discord. And when you do things like this and this drip, 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 it continues to sow discord.
Except the president said in the last 24 hours there never should have been a special counsel.
Well, I agree with them, because it's the scope.
You just said let Mueller's investigation run its course.
Just because he should run its course doesn't mean I think that he should have had one. I think that the scope of a special counsel is so broad and so large. We saw that with the Ken Starr investigation. They can go after and do anything. That's why I don't think it should have been done, because it's not going to be narrowly tailored to what this thing should have been about.
Quickly, Joan.
The House Intelligence Committee was totally corrupt. What we learned now is that they refused to subpoena, go after just basic witnesses, that they tried to cover up, not to look for evidence, to cover up evidence. So the fact that this all comes out and steps on their message of no collusion, again, there's no coincidence.
We know the president has been talking about the Russian investigation in public also to his key friends and allies. Up next, the president wants this comedian to play him on Saturday Night Live. Daryl Hammond joins me to respond.
Plus, the White House Correspondents' dinner actually begins in just moments. You see the room there set with all 3,000 attendees. The comedian, Michelle Wolf, getting ready to roast politicians and the media alike. Stand by. Our special live coverage continues next.